Welcome to the Mixing Glass, brought to you by Bardtenders. I'm your co-host, Michael Windsor, and boy, do we have a great show for you tonight. First one we're doing after Elevate, remotely. Still a great time, but I got to say, I really miss being face-to-face with our host, a loving father, devoted husband, and the host you love the most. Please welcome John Mateer.
Oh, Mike, that was so nice of you.
I just right on the spot, It's
right on the spot.
It's easy to say the things when they're true,
Yeah. So all those ones that you said about me while we were at Elevator. Also
my favorite is still the Florida man with the plan, Mr. Passionate Apollo himself.
Yep, that's good. I'm gonna put that on my tombstone. Thanks, Mike. Those are really good. Now I know you're not here to talk about me tonight. I think we have a guest on the show, right?
We have a great guest. Yeah, tonight we're going to be talking with Clint Spotleson. Clint grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and spent 20 years in the bar industry, helping build the Phoenix cocktail scene. Early in his career, Clint got involved with Camp Runamok, where he built a love for whiskey, which eventually led to an opportunity to work with WhistlePig Rye in 2016. Clint left WhistlePig in 2017 for a 5-year stint in Vegas at Herbs Rye before returning home to Phoenix in late 2021. After some time in Kimpton Hotels, Clint made the decision to officially make the move out from behind the bar, where he ultimately landed his dream role as the Global Advocacy and Engagement Manager with Sagamore Rye. Sagamore Rye has been around since 2013, where they initially bought their rye from MGP while starting up. But in 2017, they opened their distillery in Baltimore, Maryland, and have been producing their own rye ever since. They use a double mash recipe of 95.5, so 95% rye, 5% malted barley, high rye, and a 52-43.5 rye, corn, malted barley, respectively, low rye, to create a rye that lines up with all that you found historically in Maryland, which is pretty cool. They work hard hand in hand with local farmers to be 100% grain to glass Maryland rye whiskey. So please welcome to the show, Clint.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being on. Yeah, I know. I'm sad we didn't get to connect in person at Elevate, but there's this marveling thing called the internet that we get to actually hang out for a little bit. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right, now before we get a little too far, into the rails tonight and talk about some amazing things, because I know you have some amazing stories to share over your career. We like to start with a little bit called Roll for Initiative. And I know you have a 20-sided die right over there. So if you want to give that guy a roll and let us know what number pops up.
You got to blow on it, Ooh, we got number 14.
Number 14. Got it over there, Mike, or you want me to be the official asker?
Yeah, no, you do it this time. I'll get it ready next time.
Clint, if someone asked to be your apprentice and learn all that you know, what would you teach them?
Ooh, great question. I would probably say without a doubt, how to be efficient on the bar side, but still have fun while you're doing it and provide the best experience possible.
Yeah, that's why we do it at the end of the day anyways, right? You got to have fun.
Yeah.
As soon as you stop having fun.
Anybody to mix a drink, but you can't teach hospitality.
You can't teach them to love what they do, to care about people, to genuinely have a passion. You can teach anybody to put liquids in cups. That's real.
Absolutely.
Mike, you have something else you want to teach anyone?
I hate this question so much because it just highlights my lack of proficiency in anything. My last one was how to play Skyrim. It's like I thought about that a lot after I made that. I'll teach you really. I can teach you how to drive. I can do that pretty well. I've driven across the United States a couple times. I can teach you how to stay out of the passing lane. I can teach you little tricks with truckers. If the truckers ever flash their lights at you 3 times, it means you did something good. So.
That's good. See, I didn't know that. I learned that today.
I went just straight industry on this. I wasn't thinking outside the box here and going all things.
No. See, I've been out of the industry for like over a decade, Clint, so I have to reach for other things. So,
yeah.
What about you, John? What are you gonna impart on the masses?
Oh man. Okay. So
I think maybe how to fire people properly.
Nope, can't do that. There's no good way to do that because that means that you haven't solved the problem in advance and coached them correctly.
Oh,
so
look at that! What a manager this guy is.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason, and this is a reason we offer free education through this platform, which is kind of really amazing. No, I think last time I I taught people how to null like all their stations and like how to get everything set up for success so you don't lose anything, whether it's at home in your kitchen or behind the bar. I love that one. I think this time, I think this ties really well with everything we're going to be talking about with, Sagamore too, because you're the advocacy, global ambassador for that. So I think it's having healthy relationships with your brand reps, the people you work with in your business, and how to create relationships that have a return of investment for everybody, not just you, not just them. How do you cultivate a healthy relationship that benefits everyone and has a return that you can both be happy about at the end of the day? I think that's definitely a power that you can teach people the right way.
Great one.
How's that, Mike?
That's great. That was great. I just can't wait for the day when you fire me and see how you handle that.
Yeah, there's plenty of coaching happening right now.
It's like, look, Mike, well, we appreciate you being here, but we just didn't figure out the right way to, correct the problems when they were happening. And it's not me, it's you.
Oh my God. All right. So Clint,
Yep.
we're here to talk about you. We're here to talk about Sagamore Rye. But we ask every guest who comes on the show to talk a little bit about their origin story. How'd you get into the hospitality industry? What was your first job? What drew you in and made this your career?
All right, no. So I started out in back of the house. Not even back of the house. My very first job in the industry, I was in high school, and I was working for Einstein's Bagels at a store in North Scottsdale. It was the busiest store in America. Pure sales. Like
Einstein's great.
Yeah, it was a machine. It was fun because all my friends worked there, so we had a good time with it. But while I was there was a really, really busy restaurant across the street called Earl's. And I still remember the GM would come in every morning, get coffee. She'd get a bagel. We started talking. And after a while, she was like, you're pretty efficient. You want to come work with us? And I was like, we'll see. And she said, well, and then she started telling me about tips. I could make them. Like, okay, this sounds great. So
Yeah, just
way better.
Poaching you right in the bagel
take
shop.
a quick detour through this whole thing. So I went over there and I bussed. And I was a busser for maybe like 2 months. That was it. And they actually asked if I wanted to move towards the kitchen. Like obviously starting as a dishwasher, the time I was 17, whatever. And I still remember because there was this kid that was a dishwasher, and his brother was not the sous chef. He was like right below him. He was like one of the leads though. And so this kid was so happy because he thought for sure, he's like, oh, now I'm getting promoted. You're going to have to do the grunt work. And that lasted about a week because I ran circles around him and I got bumped up to the kitchen. So, was doing kitchen, doing school, all that. Moved my way up. It was fun. Really enjoyed cooking. It was a great outlet. I grew up in a family. My mom cooked. My grandmother. I come from an Italian family, so grandmother was always cooking. So I loved all that. But then on a random Friday night, bar back, no called, no showed. The bar was always busy. I mean, this was not to date myself, but 1999. They were doing probably about $7-8 million a year at that point.
Wow.
Right.
For 99,
so it was a
crazy.
busy spot. High vol, ticket prices were high. And so I was kind of the person, I was supposed to be kind of running Expo. The exec chef was there. So he was like, hey, I'll take the window tonight. Why don't you just help them out? Like, sure, why not? See what's going on. Jump back there, and I made more money in one night than I made in, week and a half in the kitchen. So that changed everything. Like,
I wish that wasn't the case, but it's so true.
Yeah, so that kind of was plus I love talking. I love talking to people. So it was a much better fit than, sitting on a kitchen line, talking to people who are getting pissed off because they're getting busy all the time. So, so moved into the bar world, kind of did the little, discuss like sports bars, all that kind of thing. I kind of ran the gauntlet, any kind of bar, high-end bars, sports bars, strip clubs, you name it. At some point I worked behind. So I got pretty good experience. Management, started being, bar managing some spots. And 2009, I entered at the bequest of the GM of the spot, who was also one of my best friends, and rest in peace to you, bud. He passed away early this year, but he recommended that I try out for this margarita competition. So I get there. I was like, it's 2009. Phoenix hadn't completely blown up yet. And so I'm like, I'm going to do this really cool, like watermelon, rosemary margarita. I had this whole idea. I was like reading how to make simple syrups. So I did watermelon juice, little rosemary syrup, fresh lime. And I was like, I was just kind of researching, like looking at it from like a culinary standpoint. And I went, everybody's flipping bottles, doing flair, and I'm like, oh, I've lost. This is gonna be horrible. So I make the drink and sit there, and I'm like, it's getting close to my shift. And I'm trying to leave, and they keep stopping me, like, you can't leave. And I'm like, what do you mean I can't leave? I'm like, I have to go to work. They're like, no, we need you to stay. And come to find out that, the bottle flipping was great, but this was the first time in the history of the margarita competition at this event. It's like a big salsa challenge in Phoenix that someone had actually made a good margarita. I had a perfect score.
No, come on.
So I ended up winning the whole thing, which was awesome.
That's great.
So great.
That kind of, jump started. In my earlier days on the club side, I had met a gentleman by the name of Jason Asher, who was a good friend of mine. We more from going out, but he had left and gotten into cocktails at this place called Jade Bar. And he asked me if I would be interested in trying out for an open role. Turns out I was actually filling the spot vacated by the legendary Jillian Bose, who was moving to Boston and ultimately New York. Very dear friend of mine.
That's a spot to fill.
Yeah, big shoes to fill back then. But ended up getting the job, joining the team, and that kind of jumpstarted my cocktail world career, and moved through, the Phoenix scene quite a bit. That team was, Murderer's Row, besides Jillian Lehman, obviously Jason Asher's a huge name, Century Grand, won Best Bar Tales last year, or 2 years ago now.
Two
2 years ago, yeah. Time's flying too fast. We also had Tyson Beeler was part of Deathco on that team too. So Michael,
crazy.
It was legitimately like one of the best teams I've ever seen, pound for pound, bar time. Like looking back at it now, like I can't believe all of us were on that same team at one point. So it's pretty cool. But helped grow the Phoenix scene. Started getting involved in doing a little bit more like outside stuff. That's where Camp Runamok came into play, where I ultimately ended up going from camper all the way to sheriff twice, which I think is fertile now. But so that was
you can only do it. You can only do it like once, right? I think, and then you graduate.
Yeah, it's you can't up to back then was twice. There's a really funny side story that I won't get into because it's kind of put somebody on blast. But
it's okay. We'll save that for after the show.
Yeah, bonus content.
It's a good friend of mine. I don't want to know, but so I moved up to counselor, A-team, assistant sheriff, and then sheriff ultimately twice. But that was kind of where my love of whiskey came into play heavily, was my years with that. And through that whole group, Portland Cox Week, did a lot with them, was invited to the initial King Camp. And there I became really close friends with, my roommate out at that trip, with a Vegas bartender and bar owner by the name of Nectalia Mendoza. And we became buddies. This was, we were both younger, dumber. He was obviously, now he's famously sober, great coach on that. But this is before those days. So we had a lot of fun together.
Sure.
We were kids. Makes sense. But it led to a great friendship. And in 2017, I was kind of, Phoenix, I felt like it kind of ran its course a little bit for myself, not for the industry. But, I was working at a spot that things weren't going great. And I called him to vent. And it ultimately led to him literally saying, he's like, do you own your house? Nope. Do you have a girlfriend? Nope. He goes, well, I'm hiring somebody for Herbs Rye, so get up here. And
yeah, sounds like you need to get in your car right now.
And literally, like, thank God, my sister had just moved up there a few months before. Her now husband, active duty Army, so he was deployed. So she had a whole house with nobody there. So I called her. I'm like, hey, you want a roommate for a couple months till I find a place? And she was like, huh? And I'm like, I'm moving up. And I literally left the job I was at on a Tuesday, moved to Vegas on a Friday, started at Herbs on Monday.
See, This is what I love about the hospitality industry too, right? Like, there are very few jobs where you can move to another state, have friends, have people you connect with, and immediately launch a new career. And it just feels natural. Yeah. You don't have to worry about as much stress because you're around people you care about. This is the industry where that happens. And that's incredible.
It was, and it was a great run. Vegas became a home. It was the perfect fit. I mean, we were kind of that team of, there's a bunch of bartenders that had moved from all around. And, it was kind of like the island of misfit toys, if you will. Like, it was just all of us had our own quirks, and it really made for a melting pot of just one amazing team. I was there for 5 years. It opened a lot of doors. I got to travel the world with the brand. And I say the brand, but it's, Herbs, I mean, almost as a brand, it's an institution.
Yeah, but any amazing cocktail bar is a brand as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the employees are part of that brand, and they're attached to it, and they represent the brand when they go places. I mean, you could be a 10-seat bar. That's still a brand, right?
I mean, I would base travel off trying to do pop-ups everywhere I went. And, or a seminar or something like that. And I stayed there through COVID, and ultimately 2020, the end of 2021, ended up moving back home because of somebody who's not in my life anymore.
Also, bonus content at the end of the episode.
Yeah, pay that $5. You'll get it.
Yeah, so moved home, worked for Kimpton I originally actually came to open a bar that was this bar and restaurant that it was, the concept was great. There was too many cooks in the ownership group. It got a little crazy. So I left for Kimpton. And after about a year and a half there, it was just kind of like got to the point I was ready for something new. I realized, I'm not getting any younger. I'm like, I was managing, I was putting in late hours, and when I was behind the bar, I noticed stuff was hurting a lot more. Yeah. And as happens when you get older, I mean, like I've literally gone to the chiropractor twice this week because I'm still trying to fix those problems. But
no, we did a pop up while we were in Kentucky, and my knees are still hurting, and it's been a week. So I'm right there. I get it.
No amount of stretching fixes you at this point. After you get after the gray hairs start appearing, nothing fixes you.
Damage is done. We're broken. It's fine.
But so I went briefly to work for a distributor, and it was a great experience. I was their spirit specialist, and randomly got hit up by a headhunter.
So you started your career getting headhunted.
Yeah.
Now we're getting to where you are also getting
full circle again. Yeah. She reached out. She's like, "Hey, I've got this opportunity," and I had heard a few months prior that they were looking for somebody. And so she gets a Rye whiskey. I go, "Is it Sagamore?" And she goes, "How'd you know?" And I go, "All right, this I had a friend mention to me they might be looking for somebody. I just wasn't sure where I was at that point. Like I knew I was ready to take the jump. I just was like, okay, global role. Let's see. I'll at least apply. Let's see what happens. Worst thing, I don't get it. Best case, I'm like, I'm taking a chance. And sure enough, like it was a pretty expedited interview process. Within 3 weeks, I think 3.5 weeks from start to finish, landed the role. And I literally put in my 2 weeks with the other job. They were ecstatic. Like I'm still actually really good friends with my boss there. She had helped roll Sagamore out in Arizona years prior, so she was actually, I love that brand, so I'm excited for
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
And literally got done. Same thing, like got done on a Wednesday. Sunday night, I was on a flight to Baltimore. Did a whole deep immersion into the brand for about a week, and then immediately went home, packed a bag, and had our first event at Tails. We did Di Serrano House. So it went right. Yeah, it was not like
casual,
a break.
casual, slow move. Absolutely.
And we had, Boada, Simone Caparelli. So like huge. I'm freaking out about that. And everybody kept keeping a little secret from me. I'm like, what's going on? They go, well, there's a second bar that's doing Di Serrano House with you. But we've been keeping this one quiet just to kind of like ease you a little bit. I go, what do you mean? I go, what are you talking about? They looked over and go, it's Herbs Rye. So I end up, my very first major event was with Herbs Rye that I never left. I probably would have been at in the first place. So
yeah, but that's great. Like, because it's all your old friends and the people you know, anyways, and it makes a shift like that so much easier too when you know everybody and just mesh. So
it was it's been a great run. I mean, I'm still fairly new to the company, but it's been an awesome experience so far. It's been a little bit of learning and a lot of figuring things out as I go and just trying to understand what works, what doesn't, in this position, because it's a lot more than focusing. I got to think more macro than micro. So
yeah, no, 100%.
Instead of just focusing on Phoenix or Arizona or even like the Southwest, we're obviously very heavy United States still, but there's still little segments. I earlier this month went to BarConf in Berlin, and then immediately went to London and worked the market. That's actually part of the reason I wasn't at Elevate was I just got home. So I didn't really
gotta recharge the batteries.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was something like I think this month I've been home for like 3 or 4 total days. So
wow.
Yeah. 2 of them have been the last 2 days. So we got a little stretch here for a week or so. So I'm pretty happy. So
that's good.
Yeah.
All right. Now, before we jump into talking about Sagamore, I think that we would be making a mistake if we didn't talk a little bit about Phoenix, Arizona cocktail scene.
I also have a question too that you're going to hate me for, John, but
oh no, well then you have to go first.
Yeah.
So I'm so sorry. What's your go-to order at Einstein Bagels?
Oh, God. So I honestly had not gone to one in probably 15 years. And about a month and a half ago, moved into a new apartment. There's one across the street. I quickly started walking towards the door, filmed a quick video, sent it to like all my buddies because, still friends with a lot of these guys.
Sure.
We all grew up together. Send it to them like, looks like I'm coming home, like as a joke. Mm-hmm. Went in and I was like, and I still got the ham and Swiss bagel plain bagel, cream cheese. They used to have sprouts, and I love like alfalfa sprouts.
Yeah.
So I was a little bummed because they didn't have them anymore. So that was kind of a big beatdown for me. I mean, it kind of really saddened my experience, but
it ruined everything. 1-star review. No alfalfa sprouts.
I went on the alfalfa. I was just trash. I was at the front door, just throwing the bagel on the ground. So
Oh, I bet. No, alfalfa sprouts with cream cheese are great. Have you seen the videos of the guy that goes into these delis and he orders a bagel with a half pound of cream cheese? I'll send it to you later.
I have not. I mean, I'm sure
it's hilarious. Like, no, half pound of cream cheese on that. Sorry.
I don't think that's the standard order.
Back to the professional podcast here, John. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That was good.
I had to know. I love bagels, so.
No, it's perfect. Okay, so you've lived, been in Arizona for a long time, especially Phoenix, 20 plus years. We read your bio, and it's not often that you find a hospitality professional that stays in a city all the time, or at least makes that their home and travels. So how has, the Phoenix, Arizona scene changed, right, over time? How have you seen it grow? How have you seen it expand? Like, what are some of the highlights? I'd love to hear a little bit more about it.
Well, absolutely. Well, I think the first big thing was when you looked at Phoenix as it started, the hotbed was Scottsdale first. Like we're going back like 2010, Jade Bar was in Paradise Valley at a very high-end resort. I mean, the best sanctuary resort had won like world's best spa the year before. I mean, legitimately top of Camelback Mountain.
Sure.
Rooms are like $800 to $1,000 a night. It's unreal. So, that was a little bit different. But when we all left Jade Bar, I was running a spot called Mabel's on Main, which is now the Beverly. That was kind of like one of the original big hotbeds for the cocktail scene. You had, Citizen Public House, Casablanca Lounge. There wasn't a lot. There was a few spots. And it started to evolve and move. And then downtown Phoenix is kind of the first big ones where the Kimpton opening down there, and then Ross Simon opening Bitter and Twisted. That was kind of really the first time. And you had spots that had been doing like martinis and stuff like that, but like Hanny's, which is still there. I've got plenty of memories of being, early days of, I had moved down to downtown Phoenix probably 2013, I think it was. And I can remember, sitting there like going with Ross, because there was only a few of us that lived downtown at the time.
Yeah,
going over to Hanny's, just smashing. They did like a $5 like late night happy hour on martinis. We were the only ones that ever ordered gin, only ones that ever asked for vermouth, and they thought we were just crazy. We just sit there and just younger. So fire down like 4 or 5 in a sitting wasn't a question. It was more the answer to everything. But I think over time you saw that evolution towards downtown Phoenix as Phoenix grew. Downtown was really catalyzed by ASU opening a downtown campus. And no matter what people say, sports teams going down there, that ASU campus, because it was a graduate school, so everybody was over 21, really became a lifestyle thing. So, I mean, you were putting almost 10,000 students down there, and then offices started getting filled. Interns had a reason to be there. More restaurants, bars opened. And I think that's really everything started shifting towards Phoenix with spots, kind of Spider-Manning out. So if you ever look at Phoenix, metro area, I always call it like, it's almost like a bed. And that's the shape of what you would see for like where the heavy drinking areas are. And it's kind of like from back in the day, it was like Tempe to Scottsdale. So you're going directly north on Scottsdale Road. And then roughly around Indian School would cut across probably about 6 miles. And that's like with Arcadia neighborhood, all that is to Midtown. And then would cut back down. It's like the legs of the bed to downtown Phoenix. Now, of course, it's grown heavily since then. Nowadays, I mean, Phoenix is still like your big hub. There's some spots in Scottsdale doing some really heavy, like I call the Instagrammable side. Like there's great drinks, but they're very like, how much stuff can we put in the garnish? Like everything's a super bright color. Nothing wrong with it.
Phone eats first.
Yeah, exactly. It's this right here. But you've seen Gilbert pop up. You've seen Tempe is starting to get back on the map. Tempe was a huge college area. So people were always like, it was like $5 beer night. Now it's actually becoming cocktail centric down there. Chandler kind of became the big East Valley hotbed first with the Brickyard and the Ostrich. But I think downtown Phoenix today, I mean, Bitter and Twist is still going strong 11 years in. You've got Ross partnered with a Tucson bartender, Aaron DeFeo, another great friend who moved up, and they opened Little Rituals, which I think is now like 3 straight years been nominated for made the top 4 for best hotel bar in America.
Little Rituals.
Yep, it's all about the little rituals when you're drinking. So,
no, that's a great name. I love that.
They're also a great Sagamore account, so I love them. So
yeah, very good.
But before I was even with Sagamore, that was always one of my favorite hangouts. Aaron's been a longtime friend. I love those guys. There's some really amazing agave bars. Barcoa when I need a break from whiskey, that's kind of my favorite hangout on the planet, just because great mezcal selection. It's probably one of the most underrated bars in America. And then you have that whole like street right there. You've got Killer Whale Sex Club, FYPM, which this isn't live video, right?
Killer Whale Sex Club.
The Killer Whale Sex Club is their original. It's Brendan and Sam's, two guys, both kind of came up through that Century Grand family, which was Barter and Shake. And they have that. Their second big one is, which was, I think, made the top 10 for best new bar this year, is FYPM. Fuck you, pay me. So
I love
that one has to be initialized for signage. I don't think
of course.
But they've had some really pretty penny. They've had some really cool concepts. They're big into the kind of like the gastro side of it, like clarify everything. A lot of that was based when Killer Whale opened. It was a week before COVID. So a lot of it was to stabilize at first, and it's kind of become their thing, and they do a great job with it.
If it works, run with it.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting great recognition for it. So really happy for those guys. I think I've missed another massive one in Highball. Highball has been all over the map. They've traveled. They do well. Mitch and Libby are phenomenal bartenders, phenomenal friends there. They consult everywhere. Like, honestly, one of my favorite bars on the planet. I'll probably go there tomorrow night to say hi because I know they're doing a little Halloween thing. So, excited for that. There's a lot of cool up-and-coming stuff. Carry On's getting ready to open. It's kind of based to be the inside of an airplane. 1960s, like Pan Am style. Still can't smoke.
So not exactly.
No smoking, but it's got that feel. You're sitting around couches, tables, we don't have a cocktail, and it's going to be focused on spirits from around the world.
Does every once in a while I hit turbulence and the restaurant shakes just a little bit?
I do once a night.
All right. If anybody there is listening, you can have it.
Also, they should put out ashtrays even though you can't use them.
No, I would use them as just like a menu paper, like a check paperweight or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Or just get a deep one, use it as like a shot glass, like almost like a pizza where you just like maybe I can give them do some Sagamore sponsored ones. We'll see.
There you go. I want one.
Little triple diamonds in the ashtray. So you got downtown's crushing. Like Arcadia, obviously Century Grand is kind of the stalwart. That's the name everybody knows coming out of Arizona. But there's a lot of exciting projects in the future. I'll leave those kind of quiet because it's stuff that hasn't been signed yet. And my friends have just told me, and I want them to be able to succeed greatly with it. And Phoenix as a whole is very slept on. I think people have been coming out a lot, especially Arizona Cocktail Week. It's the first major kind of cocktail show of the year. Yeah, I highly recommend if you have downtime. I think this year it's going to be February 28th through March 4th.
That's definitely the start of the year for conferences. So
yes, spring training's going to be going on. Weather's perfect. It's like 70 degrees that day, 60s at night. So sweatshirt weather, and it's such a great time. They get bars from all around the world to compete or to participate in it. Top bars, 40 bars from both locally and around the world. Partner up with brands that do these cool pop-ups, cocktail carnival. Like it's a really amazing event. And I think that's helped get it on the map more. But as a whole, it's just the Phoenix scene is definitely, I'd say I still think it's slept on. So much talent has come out of Phoenix, and now you're starting to see the new generation, which is the ones that didn't have to push to learn all of it. The ideas are there, now they're perfecting it. And it's really spectacular sight to see. So
that's how you should be. You should follow in the footsteps of those that led the way for you,
Exactly.
Like, why not grow and succeed together? So
absolutely.
See, this is why we have to ask this. When people are locals and they've lived there for a long time, they have their finger on the pulse. Like, you get it, So have to take advantage of experts in their community. Always.
Absolutely. Anytime. I get people all the time asking, send them a quick text.
Boom, done. I do want to talk about Sagamore Rye, though. And before we talk
that's
about...
why we're here, right?
That's why we're here.
My Baltimore Orioles font.
I noticed that. That's great. I love it.
Sagamore t-shirt, just
I love it.
Only get it at the distillery, so you got to get over there and grab it. But
no, that's incredible. But before we dive into the brand, I think that not everybody is familiar with the Maryland Rye. So, we know that your journey to get there, but let's talk about the whiskey itself and how it got to be where it is. So for those of our listeners that are listening and haven't heard of what a Maryland Rye is, let's give them a little bit of detail, a little backstory.
Yeah. So Maryland Rye really is it's a style. And what it is was when you look at historically, going back to the 1700s, I sometimes slip and say pre-colonial times, but technically it would be colonial times. you see non-GMO era corn would actually grow about as far north as Maryland. And then rye was a lot more prevalent. Obviously it's a colder weather, deals with harsher environments a lot better. So closer to the ocean, more sand soil. Rye grew pretty prominent, but a lot of these early people would make whiskey with what they could find. So rye was their prominent grain. But when they found corn, they would throw a little bit in, and that little bit of sweetness they really liked. They liked the flavor profile on it. And so you see these recipes, and it's hard because we've even tried to do the homework, and it's not a lot was written down. A lot of it was just like kind of in a quick notebook. Notebooks get lost over 300 years.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's known like George Washington's recipe was kind of a big, chunk. It was rye, corn, little malted barley, whatever else he could find, he might toss in there. But
and even then, he drank mostly brandy.
Yeah. Whatever you find. But honestly, that was a big part of it. Was first that grain side to it, so it did have that little bit of corn. Then you look at Maryland and this goes a little bit farther back. And as you know, America, the first settlers were chasing religious persecution. So you got to look at kind of where the people settled. And so Baltimore was actually started as an Irish Catholic commune, escape. And the Irish triple distill everything. So that was their style. Whereas you go a little bit farther north, you go to Pennsylvania, and it was more of a Dutch settlement, and they tended to be more double distillation. So you see that style was brought from the Irish down towards Maryland, and being that was their safe haven, that's where they made whiskey how they knew how to make it. So again, making it with what they could find. Rye was, prominent. If you try to do 100% rye, it's so gooey you can't break it down 100%. So the corn definitely helped with that and fermentation, and voila, you have this rye that has a little bit of sweetness to it, triple distilled for the most part because that was really what they had, and that was the style they knew, so they went with it. And so those, I think, are your two big components. I don't think people realize how big rye was actually in Maryland at one point. Maryland was kind of the hotbed. Rye came before bourbon. A lot of these families, the big names in the bourbon families, were people that, when you trace their lineage back, fought in the Revolutionary War. And so they fought obviously for America. We win. We start expanding our land, and they took land grants in the Wild West at the time, Kentucky, as we know it now. So
Wild West.
The Wild West back then. And these are names like Willett, the Beam family, Hayden's. Like it's those historical families. Going back generations, they moved there, and corn grew a lot more. Again, this is non-GMO days where now we can pretty much probably grow corn on the moon if we wanted to, but
I think they already do. I think they already in development
already. But so they were making it with corn, and then bourbon was born from there. So,
John, we've never been to the moon. What are you talking about, man?
Yeah, well, we filmed it in our garage. No, I love this too, and like this is an amazing history, portion that. Over time, it doesn't matter if it's the 1700s or we go all the way back to the beginning of time. People have found a way to make alcohol and get drunk and alter their state of consciousness, right? So as settlers during this time, they're going to use what's available to them, and it's going to be very terroir driven. It's going to be very, like what's in my field is going to be what I'm drinking because it's leftover crops, right? It's not feeding the animals, it's not feeding the family, so I guess I'm going to make booze,
Exactly.
and that's why this Maryland style rye
exists. And Maryland was, in Maryland, it become like if you keep going up the timeline, like to the 1800s, Maryland became as synonymous with rye as like Georgia was with peaches. Maryland was known for their rye. It was a big part of the culture. Going up when you get towards like the 1920s, that Prohibition era, there was 74 active distilleries like in the Baltimore metro area.
That's really cool.
Which is nuts. They maintained during Prohibition. It was Maryland was known as the Free State because they. I like to say people are like, well, they didn't want to buckle with trends, but I'm like, you got to also think Baltimore is 45 minutes with traffic now, about an hour, but it's 35 miles from DC.
Pretty close.
Let's be honest. Like, sure, they were the laws, but how many politicians would have been like, yeah, no, I'm going to stop drinking. Like they're the ones that know they can bucket. So it's a lot easier.
and the harbor's right there. You can ship stuff in.
Why not? And so it stayed that way. Maryland stayed that way is a hotbed until World War II. And then during World War II, the government started subsidizing everything down. They needed ethanol for the war efforts. Distilleries turned over. And then tax subsidies kicked in with corn. So rye kind of went to the wayside, and we went from 74 to 2 by 1960, and by 1990, 0.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. Because I mean, you're right. I mean, Maryland rye whiskey kind of disappeared for a while. Even like Pennsylvania style whiskey disappeared. Like it all moved west, right? Because corn is much easier, it's cheaper to produce, everything like that, and it's sweeter, like you mentioned, and it's easier in a mash bill, right?
Absolutely.
But when did Maryland rye start to make its resurgence? And I know this is going to tie very quickly into the Sagamore story, so let's get there.
We were not the first one back on the block. We were the second. But, as the rye movement started up again, people started getting in cocktails again and finding all these old recipes. I'll say a big shout out to New York and San Francisco for really kickstarting that trend. But the demand for rye started to come back. And, we started in 2013. And the idea came a couple years before, kind of just understanding and reading about Maryland rye. And our original investor, who no longer owns it, but and we don't dig too deep into it. And there's an obvious reason. But Kevin Plank from Under Armour was actually
that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. He's very big Maryland guy, Maryland native. He cares a lot about doing little things. And the reason why we never really told is a heavy part of the story. It's really makes sense. Under Armour is an athletic brand, sports, superstars on it. Whiskey, athletes don't always mix. So
sure.
Right.
Alcohol in general, he wanted to keep them very separate.
Well, sometimes they do mix prolifically. We don't want that associated with the brand.
That's the side of sports that I like to follow, actually. So
ironically, I found out in Berlin, I didn't know this here in the US, I found out in Berlin that Steph Curry, who's an Under Armour athlete, actually has his own whiskey now.
Oh, really?
A year-old. I'm like, well, that kind of sucks, but would have been cool to be us.
Yeah, you could have been our brand guy, but no.
But he also, he gets a lot more money donated that way. So,
sure.
But so the idea started with that and bring that style back. Like it was actually a friend of Kevin's on a patio at Sagamore Farm, which Kevin owns, and discussion came and they started looking into it, and that's kind of where the history begins. Was trying to. So it was that right around 2010, trying to bring it back. So now we're on to Sagamore Rye. So 2013, brand gets started. Obviously, I think you guys know, and many of your listeners who are whiskey fans know, you can't just go in and start producing whiskey right out the gate. If you do that and you just sit on it, you've got anywhere from 2 to 4 years. You're not making a dime.
Yeah. Well, it's like a lot of people say, how do you become a millionaire in the wine business? And you don't know what you're doing. You start as a billionaire, right? Yeah. Like, like it's hard. It's hard to start a brand.
Yeah. So so they reached out to MGP. Worked with them to kind of develop the mash bill. Hired Ryan Norwood, who's our master distiller to this day, and he worked along with them to kind of learn. He actually had a beer background. He was with Fat Tire for a while.
Oh, nice.
But loved, understood the science of it and everything, and got involved and really kind of took you by the horns. Ryan's awesome. One of my favorite people to talk to. He's just laid back. That's why I love distillers, because they're for the most part all laid back, just awesome people. They're not
real humans.
Yeah, they're
just real people.
He's one of my favorite. In Baltimore, he's literally like my favorite person to sit and have a drink with. Sorry about it.
No, I was interrupting. We talked to a master distiller for Weber Ranch, and that's exactly, it fits that profile exactly. Just very laid back and easy to talk to, and also cares so much about what they're doing. Oh, yeah. I know it may not fit every distiller, but that just resonated with me for sure.
I mean, with so many of them too, you don't realize, like, for them, the science of this is so. I'm trying to. It's The Intern is the movie I was thinking of. There's a part where Owen Wilson's talking to like the guy that ends up being like the head program for Google. Sorry for any spoiler alerts there on a 10-year-old comedy.
It's been out. Tough.
But he's like, you showed me this code is, kind of like trying to teach a first grader how to write, right? And he goes, no, this is like trying to teach him one letter, like how to understand one letter. And like that's
wow.
Like master distillers just get it. They know so much about the science of it. Like, I mean, I've sat there, I've been paying attention for years, 10 plus years studying this. And still, like, there's stuff that they'll be talking about when they get into like super detailed controls on like yeast percentages. So I'm just like, huh? Can you let's rewind that?
The temperature fluctuated by 1/20th of a degree, and that's going to change the entire flavor profile because the yeast aren't digest. And I'm like, Jesus, and they just look at it and know that.
Oh, yeah. We're talking like every 10, 15 minutes, we're sitting there, one of our distillers is sitting there gauging, tasting, like, and we're talking like down to like the 100th of a millimeter. I'm like, my God, like it's awesome to see how much effort and care go into it, but it's just, but yeah, so before we get too far sidetracked on it. So we did buy from MGP for the first few years while we were building the distillery. Inner Harbor, Baltimore. It's kind of a huge project now. I always jokingly say, and I don't know how much truth there is to this, but the land that we're on now, if you ever watched The Wire back in the day, it's where they found all the dead bodies. So
okay, cool.
It's not a great area.
I'm sure Sagamore promotes that a lot, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a tourist.
It's a tourist
attraction.
I'll use in the right crowds, but obviously the land now, that whole area has been massively developed. It's probably is, I think, one of the nicest neighborhoods in Baltimore now. I mean, it's all brand new build. Nick's legendary fish house is still there, crab house, but then you got like Under Armour's corporate headquarters. You've got the distillery itself. We've got a really great restaurant, Rye Street, attached to us. A couple nice hotel, couple apartments, and then going in, which we'll touch on later after Kevin sold, but Ilva Serrano bought the brand about a year ago, and now our U.S. headquarters are directly across the street from the distillery. Which we share that
helps a lot.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to run back and forth if they need to. We still actually keep Sagamore's corporate offices at the distillery though, so it's two.
Awesome.
Yeah, so there's a little 2-lane street, 1 lane going each way that you cross. And then that building we actually share with the Baltimore Ravens corporate office. So
nice.
We keep as Baltimore as we can. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But 2017, the distillery opened right there on the waterfront in the Inner Harbor. We started producing at that time. We do everything on site completely, like the full cooking, fermenting, distilling, all happens right there on site. We do bulk mash bills there. As you touched on at the opening, that 95.5, our high rye, and then our low rye, 52, 43.5. I tend to throw out numbers fast, so bear with me. Say it so often, that's like I'm like a robot now. But we literally distill both of them there, ferment, distill them separately, and then we send them off to age separately. So we handle all that on property, and then bottling, they come back when they're ready to be aged. We actually bottle on site as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, the aging facilities, our storehouses are within Baltimore proper, so it's about 20-25 minute drive North Point, where we keep all of them with the exception of a small still house on the farm. And that one's was the original one and kind of the fun, playful. We keep some of the projects that might never see the light of day, or if they do, will be very the releases in there, the very first barrels in there. It's a fun one to hang out in. I mean, Brian's watching this. Sorry, I opened it, but I tried that. We did like a malted rye. It's just one barrel just to test it. It tastes like honey. Delicious. It was so unbelievably good. I flat out was like, this is honey in a glass. It is amazing. Probably could have drank enough to fall over onto it, but it was good.
Just notice it's so good.
So how do we get a tour of this place?
Well,
actually, it's kind of funny when we do barrel tours. So and I feel like I'll jump back to it from there. When we do barrel tours, like you do go to the farm, you do get to see it.
That's cool.
Don't get as much freedom as I get to open everything, but I probably shouldn't be going as crazy. But there'll be a couple little things. There's some side projects like with our Manhattan finish. I was digging around trying to find what Sweet Vermouth brand it is, and done a good job of covering that up. So
that's good.
I can't even know. Come on, guys, it's crazy. So we got going in 2017. Started laying barrels. We say 4 to 6 years. 5.5 is kind of a sweet spot. Again, Maryland, very hot during the summer. Very cool.
That was the question I was going to ask. Like, how different is it from Kentucky? We've had, a good friend of ours, Maya, who runs Talnua Distillery in Denver. And obviously it's very different when you barrel age in Denver, Colorado versus Kentucky, now Baltimore. So I kind of wanted to know how that changes the flavor profile.
Yeah. I mean, we don't move the barrels around the rick house. We have everything, again, getting into the science of it. Everything is marked. We know exactly the age of every single thing in every single row. So we can go up and down, taste them. But I mean, to give you an idea, the day I went out there, we went in the morning, thank God. It topped out at 102 degrees in Baltimore, which on the water with that humidity was not fun. I live in Phoenix, and I'm like, this sucks. So
Phoenix is a dry heat, right?
Yeah, I'm like 115 with no humidity somehow is better than this. Like,
crazy.
But so you can get those brick houses and storehouses. You go up, they get hot. They get really hot. I mean, we were throwing around numbers, and I think a lot of it was trying to translate to Celsius, especially in Europe. So I want to say probably 140 near the top at points. So like enough where you can't spend a lot of time up there. It gets hot. But then in the winter, it'll drop down, 18 degrees, 10 degrees. We might get in the negative digits a couple times a year. So you get that cold weather influx too. So summertime, the barrels are vibrant and then just tighten up for the winter. So it's it gets a lot of flavor impacted into it. And obviously with the different with the different mash bills, you get a little bit of difference in the flavor profiles coming off into the wood. So when we try to hit that 5.5, pull it, and we'll actually blend at that point. So we blend 85% high rye, 15% low rye. So the idea is just to add a little bit of that corn to it. We do 20 barrel drops. So our small batch is a true small batch. We're not, small batch, but hey, we threw 5,000 barrels in there.
Well, that's crazy. Yeah, I was gonna say that's the crazy thing about small batch. It could be huge. Like it's just it's relative to the distillery that makes it.
Exactly. But yeah, so that so if you do the math now, we are officially 100% on our frontline one, the small batch. We are 100% Maryland made now. Grain to glass, which we'll touch on in a minute or two, but we are kind of at that point now where we've cycled out to the last of the double oak. So these are our core three: the small batch, the double oak, and then our cash strain. There's a tiny bit of juice because we do an extended aging on that. We finish it for 18 months in a level 1 char toasted wave state barrel. So kind of
low. It's low too, though. A level 1. That's low.
Yeah, literally. So it doesn't burn the sugars as much as it kind of caramelizes them. So it leaves a lot of vanilla notes, creme brulee notes. It's almost like imparts a little bit of sweetness because it doesn't completely burn the sugar off, which is kind of nice. Traditionally our barrels are level 3, so this little added and gives a little more sweetness. That one though, we're pretty much at this point now 100% Maryland, and then with the cask string, we are in these last bottling runs of the year, killing 1 barrel for each run of what was remaining from 7-year MGP. So 19 of the 20 barrels were made by us, 1 by them. We are on set to finish it out by end of year, and then January 1.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we are come January 1. Everything coming out of the story, 100% Maryland made for our core lineup. So
that's incredible. Like what a journey too, because that is a process, right? Yeah. Like that is a long process, and it's so incredible that you're almost there. I mean, that's why MGP exists, right? To help.
Yeah, it's a bittersweet finish. They were great to us, but it's awesome to be able to say we're doing it ourselves now. So
yeah.
And we still, respect everything they did for us. So it's great. So
yeah, it's a good relationship to have too for the future.
All
right, let's talk about grain to glass. I think this is really important.
Yeah. So our biggest focus has always been about trying to support Maryland as a community. And our grain to glass initiative, what we do is we have a farm about a half hour outside of downtown Baltimore in a Reister town, for those who've been there, called Sagamore Farms. It was a famous horse racing farm. Tied to the Belmont Stakes, native dancer when you go back to like the 50s, 60s. There's this horse that didn't run the Kentucky Derby, but ran everything else and went undefeated. So, I mean, if it had ran the Kentucky Derby, probably would have been the most famous horse of all time.
Yeah, legendary
horse though, lived there. But the farm, horse side, big part of it, but then Kevin Plank bought it. It's a former Vanderbilt property. A lot of the branding you see are triple diamonds, don't just stand for triple distillation. The color in the diamond itself was actually the patterns on the jockeys' uniforms coming out of that farm. So it was
cool.
a little tie-in there. I just realized I didn't even touch on that, the distillation. So we'll go back to that.
We can hit it. We can hit it whenever.
First one is all still. Pennies are big still. 19 plates, about 15 really used. And then we hit 2 doublers. So picture is like a column pot and then 2 single pots. So we get off that column at 125. Doubler 1 takes to 130. Doubler 2 takes to 135. This actually plays perfectly into the farm because we then proof it down with water from our spring house. So we have a spring house on site. We pump the water out of it and take it to the distillery. Use it only for the whiskey. If we try to use it for cleaning, we'd probably run out already. So
truly local. Keep it as tight as possible.
We use city water for cleaning, but
it's fine. It builds character.
Yeah, no. So back to the grain to glass now, and that's kind of a big part of it. So we had the still house at the farm, and we really wanted to try and make it as much about the community as we could. So what we did was it's about 170 acres. We grow all of the corn. 100% of the corn that we use, non-GMO, is grown at the farm. We grow a little bit of rye. Yeah, it's awesome to be able to say, and the fact that we have chased it down, we know it's non-GMO. We do a particular rye strain called Serafino rye is what we use. We try to grow as much as we can at the farm. Obviously, we go through a lot of rye and for already grown corn. We have to we go through way more. We go probably like 80 times more rye. So we started working with the farmers. We do grow soy at the farm too to kind of regenerate the soil. So we will cycle that as we go. But what we did was we started working with local farmers in Maryland. And obviously, as I touched on earlier, corn has some heavy subsidies. The government pretty much takes care of you to grow corn because they want the fuel, they want the high fructose corn syrup. It's a sad testament to our eating culture these days, but there's so much stuff behind it that they want to see corn grow. So there wasn't a reason to grow rye. So we actually buy the seeds for the farmers, give the seeds to the farmers, and then we also guarantee them a price per ton, just in case there's a drought, something happens. It's a hot year and everything cooks off, or for how sturdy rye is, there's still a chance it might be an off year. So that way they don't technically, I should say technically, they don't literally lose their farm.
It helps eliminate the risk.
Yeah, exactly. We try to minimize that risk as much as we can for them, and it's been to great success. We are getting over 1 million tons a year brought in now. We are processing through all of it, and it is a great partnership we have with them. And it's awesome to be able to say that everything coming into that glass is Maryland based. So
yeah, that's so cool. It's making me nostalgic too, because, for people who haven't been to Baltimore or Maryland, a lot of people, when they think of Maryland or Baltimore, The Wire, Baltimore City, they have all these preconceived notions. It's also one of the places where you can drive 20 minutes out of the city and there's a tractor driving down the street, like a combine or something. And you're like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting this. So it's reminiscent because I'm in Kansas, and Baltimore it's not as flat, obviously. Baltimore felt very much like home to me in a lot of ways. It really, really did.
Yeah. It's a beautiful place. It's a hardworking, it's a blue collar town. Baltimore's known for like that dive bar style culture, though they do have great cocktail spots, but it's a fantastic place. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's great that we're able to support them that way we can.
Yeah.
Obviously certain things like glass, we tried to originally. Glass, though, just to get it at cost, we still try to keep it American, but
it's hard, especially in a post-2020 world. It's
absolutely.
tough.
Yeah.
Everyone understands.
The bottle's the bottle, but the juice inside is what matters, and that's 100% Maryland. So
you could put it in a mason jar, and I'm going to drink good juice.
Yeah.
I'll just start sending our little barrel selects and our sneak peeks all in mason jars. Just
done.
Well, don't forget me now. Come on.
No, I'll send 2.
Okay. You can send them all to John, and he'll send the other. He'll send it to me. Make it easy.
You're like, this one's really low. Well, I like that one. This one's full. I wasn't a big fan of that. Here we go.
It's all yours, buddy.
I'm a connoisseur, so you should definitely want my reviews. Absolutely. Tell him, John. Tell him how advanced my palate is.
Yeah, spot on. So, anyways, what's next for Sagamore? I know you were talking about some really cool single barrels that you're working on.
So we've got some fun projects. We are slowly starting to steer away. I think we based a lot of our business was heavy into doing these limited releases. So we're trying to pull back a little bit and put a lot more focus onto that core group, the Maryland-born group. The pricing's become very aggressive. It's great for mixing cocktails. I mean, the small batch comes in at 93 proof. It's kind of that perfect versatile. You can use it in any application. I love it in old fashions, love it in a sour. I've become very fond of whiskey smashes with it and just playing around and doing a little, Portland Cocktail Week. We did the welcoming party and actually did a build your own smash bar.
So I love that.
Had a bunch of different herbs, juices, syrups, berries. For the sheer speed, I tried not to go straight muddling lemons. I did lemon juice because that would have been a lot of cleanup and a lot of mess. So. But yeah, it was fun to see what people created, especially when you got 500 young bartenders around you.
Sure,
you're excited and became that flex contest who's going to make the best drink, and 1 or 2 people that tried to make the worst drink and it came out great. So,
what are the 2 weirdest ingredients that are on this table? Let's play.
We had a guy literally trying. He's like, "Oh, this is going to taste so bad." We're like, "This is weirdly one of the best things I've had."
This is incredible. You're a mad scientist. I love you.
But yeah, so. That's really my big thing with that one. That one, the double oak, you can kind of use as a sipper. It's a bourbon drinker's rye, as I like to say. And then the cask string, if you want to hear shadows and all that fun stuff, feel colors, just drink a half a bottle of that. But drink responsibly. Do that. No, it's got enough kick to it, and we keep that cask strength at 112.2 across the board. And the reason being is we just want consistency with it. So I have heard rumblings we might kick it up. We're talking about maybe in the future kicking that cask strength up a little bit more. especially now that we're Maryland made. We've kind of got a better idea on where we want our flavor profile to be with it. But
Yeah.
we got some fun stuff. Not this weekend, but next weekend we're doing our first Maryland made day at the distillery. We used to do pennies proof, but the Maryland made, we're going to be launching Bottle and Bond, I think, edition number 3.
Oh, cool.
So that's going to be fun. And then to get people excited about it, I think it's distillery only, but we might release a little bit of it. Christmas time, we will be dropping the port again for the second time. So,
oh, I love a good port finish.
Yeah.
Especially on a rye, too.
Huge, excited one. A lot of people don't. I mean, it's hard to even find it because everybody drank it all. So that's
a good problem.
Yeah. We just did our 9. So our age releases, that's kind of that last homage to MGP, and it's just us aging in Maryland and see what's up. We did the 9-year release last month. I jokingly say this, I shouldn't really tell people about the future, but if we've done a 7-year, an 8-year, a 9-year, we're going to do a 10-year. We have to. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but other than that, I'll keep some of those secret. There's some stuff we're playing around with, and we always have some weird ones at the distillery. Right now, I think we have a maple syrup cask finish. So we got some fun. Sauvignon Blanc was one that they did, which was a happy accident that turned out to be. I mean, I've tried Sauvignon Blanc ones in the past. I thought they were gross. This was actually like one of the best ones I've ever had. So
that's cool. I'll tell you what, I've seen a lot of maple cask finishes starting to pop up at a lot of different distilleries now, because you can caramelize the sugars inside before you actually put the whiskey back in and age it. And that's kind of neat. Yeah. Really, really cool flavor profile.
It's like a natural fireball. It's maple instead of cinnamon.
Better.
Way better.
All right, Clint, we have one final question for you.
Okay.
We ask every guest on the show, what is your favorite shift that you have ever worked?
There's been a lot of them. I mean, if I counted it up, we're probably well into the thousands on bar shifts. But there's one that always stands out to me. And it was just because we were getting destroyed and we were having the time of our lives. And so that was Herbs Rye, SEMA, the big car show.
Oh, dude, I've gone to SEMA a bunch of times, man.
You know how many people are in town for that. I think even for Vegas, it's when people find out about something great, they go. So we were wall to wall. I mean, people waiting, standing at the bar 4 deep, waiting for a seat to open. We're talking, it's going to be like a 2.5, 3 hour wait to get a bar seat.
Oh, my God.
Waiting just to get a steak and a cocktail. It is wall to wall. It was myself. It was G, G is like Nick Telly's right-hand man. He's partner in a couple of spots now, partner in the company. He was our first beverage director. And then it's Joe Pereira, who's kind of like a legend in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Joe is one of my favorite people. Good bartender, probably the best maitre d' alive. I'll say it like that. I mean that, and it's not a joke. This is relevant because, so picture this. If you've been to Herbs Rye, about 26 seats, I think, at the bar, 4 deep. People going out towards the door. We're just getting, and the well's going crazy. So I'm in the well, and it's just the printer's going off, and we're just talking you're going to take us 12 old fashions at once. So it's I'm throwing sugar cubes in, bitters, letting them soak for a minute, and then just pounding away and trying to, break everything down. G's holding down majority of the floor, crushing it. And he's always fun to work with. He'll trash talk a little, but it's playful. And then Joe is got his little power corner. It's 5 or 6 guests, but somehow he will sell as much and pull twice as many tips than you guys will off that little 6. That's what I'm saying. He's he's that guy that everybody that's sitting in the bar might not know each other before, but by the time they leave, they're going to their friends.
It's like a hospital, right? You got a general surgeon, you got a specialist over there, you got you in triage in the service well.
Yeah, honestly, that's a great way to say it. But I just remember us getting killed, and G and I just started going back and forth because we knew there was no light at the end of the tunnel. So we're having fun with it. We're being playful with the guests. And I remember at one point, I get this huge tip on a tab, and because you guys feel it, they know when you're having a good time. We're joking. Yeah. He's getting big checks, and he keeps putting the receipt down, look at that, putting it back. We're just joking back and forth, and I get this huge one, and I still remember grabbing it and slamming it down on the bar next to him, and I look right at him and go, "I am sick and tired of being the fucking breadwinner in this family." And I turned around, went right back to work, and I don't think I've ever seen him actually fall over laughing as hard as he did. And we're still 4 deep, and this went on for probably 5 or 6 hours. It was just one of those shifts that I'll always remember, just because I couldn't remember what 90% of the people drank. I mean, obviously it was mostly old fashions, but it was just one of those it was that perfect storm. And the 3 of us had so much fun working together that night. We had a great bar. I think it was Johnny Blanco, again, another one. Rest in peace, buddy. Great bar back working that night. It was just the atmosphere was perfect. It was just like that night that you want every bar shift to go that way.
Yeah.
And like all the guests were having a blast. And it's one of those memories I'll always keep. You know, like Herbs is just this scene for so many great nights bartending in my life. Like we've had, you know, like around Bar Mania, like when all the friends are in town, you've got nights like, you know, we did a La Factoria takeover. Shout out to the homies in Puerto Rico, but we did a takeover with them, and we, being Vegas, you can be open 24 hours. We normally closed at 3. We realized at 3 we weren't closing.
At that moment,
we're like, the bar is literally wall to wall. Nobody's even sitting down. They're standing on the booths. Like, so we probably rolled to about 4:30 in the morning.
Oh my God!
One of those nights, like, everybody was, again, same thing. Music's blasting. We're having a good time. We're dancing behind the bar. You know, it's more industry late nights. So, you know, you want a daiquiri before you tip your heads back and just pouring it straight in their mouths. Like, it was a blast. And like those,
that's awesome.
I mean, it's really, I didn't even stay in that one. I'm like, it's really hard to pinpoint one from Herbs because it was 4 years of great nights, 4.5 years of great nights.
Awesome.
But the first one I said, I think is the one that stands out the most.
Yeah.
No, I mean, this is why we asked this question, right?
Yeah.
Like, we talk about these like.
Yeah, the OJ one was pretty good too. I had a good OJ story there, but.
Oh, okay. Well, now you have to tell it. Like...
So we said Tesser. I'll tell the OJ one real quick. So OJ was a regular at Herbs until COVID. Obviously, we now know COVID, found out he had cancer, ultimately passed from it. But he was a regular beforehand. He had these 2 guys, the Michaels, that would hang out with him. One was owned a bunch of property in LA, like apartments. The other one was like well-known dentist in Vegas. They were both kind of like, you know, like to hang around with him, and he obviously wasn't doing as well financially as people thought, so they took care of him when he was out. So he's sitting at the bar one night. We're at the kind of the roundabout at Herbs. Tim, these 2 kids, you know, sitting next to him, and at this point, like, he knew us all very well. He was coming in a lot. He had grown up with one of our bartenders' dads too, like before he was famous.
Oh, cool.
It was like even weirder world. Like he actually knew him from like
3 degrees of separation.
Yeah, so like he would call him, you know, he would be like, yeah, he's like, my nephew here, is Mikey here? And it's like, it's Uncle OJ. And we're like, okay. But so this night, OJ's sitting there and we're having like small chat. And he's like, Spotty, he's like, who was that rapper that could have been a football player? And I'm like, what a random question.
Yeah, no kidding.
Out of nowhere.
I'm taking care of guests and talking to him. I said the 2 23, 24-year-olds next to him. So we're joking back and forth. I make sure his wine's full. He's got a little plate of pasta. We do pasta there. Cleaver, it was always oxtail soup. And I'm like, first name, I'm like Snoop Dogg, because at the time I think Snoop's son had played for U of A. He was a wide receiver. No, it's not Snoop. And we're like throwing out names. I'm like, Big Pun? Was he like a lineman or something? And he's like, no, it wasn't him. These 2 kids decide they're going to jump in the conversation. And the kids look over and go, Kanye West. And now think about the history of OJ in his life. Without missing a beat, he looks over and goes, no, that's that dipshit that's married to my goddaughter. I can't stand that effing guy. And like the whole room goes quiet and just everybody drops because you forget that Robert Kardashian was his best friend. Kim Kardashian is his goddaughter. Like, and it was like that.
It's wild.
You're like, what just happened? And I'm like frozen, like, holy cow, like, yeah, I forgot you were at one time like one of the biggest stars in the world.
It's real.
And then without missing a beat again, as everybody's quiet, he goes, oh, it was Nelly, the Band-Aid guy. That's who I was thinking of. What just happened? So that was a fun one because I love telling that story because it was just like, what the hell just happened?
Going down, baby, Yo Street in the Range Rover.
But truly, the reason we ask this is because like we like to show that like no matter where you are in the hospitality world or no matter where you've worked, we all have these common things that bind us, and almost always it's because we have this amazing shift where you're kind of in that flow state, you're having a good time, you're hanging out with your coworkers and your friends. And that's what makes this industry so special. One of the many reasons why it's so incredible.
This in particular, too, is kind of a theme because it's those nights where it's like you said, you couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You knew it wasn't coming. But there's almost a freedom in that chaos of just letting go and just being like, oh, we're here. We're going to make it fucking work one way or the other and just riding that wave. I love that.
Yeah. And if everybody embraces it, it's the best.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like
hands down.
One of the best nights ever. So
I love that. All right. We like to do a little thing called shout outs at the end of the episode. And Clint, I know you have dropped so many throughout the episode to, all of your friends and everybody you've worked with. But where can people find you? Give us some information. They can find you. They can find Sagamore.
So Sagamore, Instagram, we're a very heavy Instagram brand. So yeah, Sagamore Spirit, at Sagamore Spirit, easy to find. A lot of details on the distillery, those fun releases I was telling you about. Sometimes we just post content that's just awesome to tell you about our brand and the whiskey. For mine personal, it's The Only Spotty. So
nice.
Kind of a fun playoff like The Only William from my bartending days. And I feel like I am the only Spotty in the bar industry. I mean, it's to a point now, more people I think know me as Spotty than Clint.
You're the only Spotty I've ever met. So
yeah, I mean, legitimately 20 years I was bartending at a sports bar. My dad came to see me, asked for Clint. They were like, he doesn't work here. And I'm getting blown up. Like, what do you mean you don't have a job? And I'm like, Dad, I see you. What's up?
Dad,
like,
what do you mean you don't have a job?
Like,
You've been lying to me.
Tell the host is Spotty. And he goes, Spotty? He goes, oh, he's on break. He's like, you got me kidding. Yeah.
That's great. I love that.
And then same thing. You'll occasionally get a little personal fun stuff from me, but for the most part, it's fun Sagamore stuff. You get to see the events. I've become a little bit of a globetrotter recently, so travels around the world. I like to throw a lot of opinions, on the bars I love as I'm out and about, so like London, Murder Inc. That is my new favorite go-to jam. That bar was amazing. Had a blast there.
What a great name too.
Oh yeah. The sign's the Burger King sign, but they broke the B and turned it into M, and then and part of the B is called out.
That's pretty cool. I love that.
That's great. It has to be a Jack the Ripper on there. That's good. Mike, shout outs for you tonight.
Oh, man, this honestly, Spotty, it's been great hanging out. I just want to give a shout out to Baltimore. I love that city so much. I have so many friends there, and the next time I go to visit, I'm definitely going to go check out Sagamore. And I even might get my buddy Steve one of those shirts because he's a big O's fan. So,
yeah, soon. I know we're going to be switching. We try to keep it fresh, so
yeah,
we'll be switching soon. You could buy it online. I will throw that out.
I don't like him that much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's time to go over there. Hey, Steve, pop through. Take a special trip. I mean, this shirt, I was leaving Baltimore. I threw this shirt on for fun, and between Rice Shoe Tavern and the airport, I probably got stopped 14 times. People going, where do I get that shirt? I go, Sagamore Distillery.
Makes sense. Online.
Yeah, one of the guys, ironically, was the bartender I was dealing with my last time there, and then Portland Cox Week. Look at this kid. This kid looks familiar, and I realized it was the same guy. He was at Portland Cox Week. And I was like, yeah, whatever the shirt. He goes, I went and bought it like right after I got off shit. So I bought it before they closed for the day. I was like,
nice.
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right. What about you, Mr. John?
Yeah. So you
might want to shout out a podcast, maybe.
I do. I want to give a shout out to my favorite podcast. It's called Bardtenders, and you're probably listening to it or watching it right now. You can check us out on social media at Bardtenders. You can check out our website at www.bardtender.com. We have amazing resources for mental and physical wellness, free education for anybody out there in the industry. And we shout out our bards, other bartenders in the industry that have side hustles and hobbies, and we support them 100% for free. And we love doing that for them because that's what this industry is.
You could also buy some really cool merch on there and probably find a link to the Discord as well.
You could probably find that there too. Another community that we're trying to grow and build for free resources for everybody because we're tearing the walls down, period. Also, last but not least, you can reach out to us via email at contact@bardtender.com. We like doing cool shit with cool people, and we love to work with you. So if you want to be on the episode, you want to do some fun things, we're here for you all the time. Or slide into those DMs on social media. That's perfectly acceptable. We're here for that too. And Mike, we love 5-star reviews.
5 stars only.
That's right. Anything less than 5, I don't want to see it. But if you leave us a 5-star review and you roast us, not just me, not just Mike, you roast the show, you roast Dale and Scott, and you give us
Clint or Spotty. You can roast the shit out of Spotty.
Roast Spotty. Boom, done. We have permission. We have consent. Roast Spotty. We don't want to volunteer you as a sacrifice unless you've given us consent.
I'll give you consent on this one.
All right, good.
Boom, it's verbal. It's in. If you roast us and leave that review, we'll read it live on the episodes because we want to hear it. We
Yeah.
also love 5-star reviews.
Also, this one's for you, Karen. If you hate the show and you've got a bone to pick with us, bring it on. But you got to give us that 5-star, and we will all know how much you care about your critiques on the show. So it's an olive branch, is what it is.
It's an olive branch. We give this to you. Truly, Clint, Spotty, thank you so much for spending the evening with us, hanging out with us, telling your story, telling us a little bit about Sagamore, Baltimore, grain to glass experience. I know Mike's going. It's going to be an awesome time for him and his buddy Steve to not get that shirt.
Oh yeah,
There's some cool new stuff. So
I'm gonna have Steve reach out to you while you're in town. You got to go have a beer down at Das Beer Hall.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, I think it's about that time, Mike. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm ready to clock out.
Let's clock out. We'll see you guys next time.
Cheers, guys.